Hi, this chapter is about natural languages and command languages because one of the key things within the human computer interface is to be able to use talking to be able to interact. We all are starting to use more verbal with just how we use our phone, for example, every day, and texting. I don't text anymore with fingers. I talk, I dictate, and then the computer is able to listen to it. So that becomes a more sophisticated natural language method to be able to do things. The goal of natural language, of course, language design is got to be precise. It can't be 1,000 words. It's got to be compact, easy for somebody to read and write, and very quick for somebody to learn. The easier and more clear it is, the less errors are going to be and retention over time. Natural language is something that you might use existing notations. You might do things to have use already known uh, labels to be able to be integrated into the design of whatever you're creating. So people don't have to learn a lot of new things. Like for example, they know the word stop means stop. You don't need to create another word or another device or an icon. The word stop means the end. So there's a lot of things you have to do when you are looking to create something. You have to identify what are all the tasks that the user is looking for the system to do. Like for example, if you were going to create a task for an airline reservations, what are the tasks that they have to do? Um, they have to be able to search to find reservations. They have to be able to add new records. They have to be able to delete things. They need to be able to modify. They need to be able to look to see if somebody has got a frequent flyer. They need to be able to check on the airline uh, options that are available. So all of these things, the user has many tasks they have to do to be able to accomplish their goal. And one of your tasks as an analyst is to be able to first list all of the tasks. So this is a very important list that I think you should keep on. You should uh, focus on, you know, determine the functionality of the system by studying the user's task domain. And you actually need to do it by watching them do their job, not having them just report to you what they do. Create a list of these tasks and objects, and then identify how are you going to, uh, what kind of word or what kind of symbol are you going to do to represent each of these different actions that the user does. Sometimes we might use words, like if you're, for example, on the Word program, we use words, and you could do the right click and you can get paste, cut, delete just by a right click through the shortcuts. But understanding what all of those tasks are, and then understanding the importance, which and you put those into different levels, and that's what we talk about, the hierarchy of importance to the user community. And then identifying, helping users, protecting them from doing something stupid, evaluating the destructive actions that they might do. The error conditions allow shortcuts, and the right mouse click is a perfect example, or Control V. I use that all the time for pasting. And then having a unifying interface concept. What does that mean? That means that for every screen, you're kind of using that same process, whether it be file, save, delete. On every screen, that means the same thing, and every one of your pieces within your application. Designers often err by choosing a metaphor closer to the machine domain rather than the task domain. That means if the user calls filing a document keeping, then that's the word that you should use to describe that function, not file, but keep. So, simple set of commands. We want to keep things as easy as possible. So we're not going to go through this. These are commands that become more complicated. They have objects. They're definitely at a lower level of command. But human beings, human learning, problems, and memory are greatly facilitated by meaningful structure. And think about it. Think about how you think about a rose, for example. When you think of a rose, you think of the color, you think of the green leaf, you think of the smell, you might think of the texture, you might think of a context. We remember things based upon a lot of different factors. And the same is true for tasks. We have task concepts, we have how the tasks relate What is it that we accomplish? How do we accomplish it with the computer? And what is the actual command language to do that? So this is just a list of commands, and we've put them in a hierarchical structure for the action, what the object is. The object, we create a file. Destination is a file. We do all of those things. But what it boils down to is we could move a file, we could copy a file, we could remove a file, we could display a file, create a file. We could move a process, copy a process. So all these actions can happen to all these objects. These objects could continue for a lot of different things. And we can move a file to the file. We could move a file to the screen. We could move a file to a remote printer. We could copy a file to the screen. There's all these different options. I think you get the idea. All right, so there's definitely a lack of consistency for words, and that becomes really a big problem. So some very common words are insert and delete. So you wouldn't want to create a system where you say add and subtract, because that has a different connotation to lots of different people. Some 6 potential abbreviations strategies, because we might have a long sentence to describe the task we want to do. Simple truncations, first, second, third letter of each command. I'm not big on that one. Vowel drop, that's very common. First and last letter, that's common. Standard abbreviations from other texts, absolutely. First letter of each word in the phrase, that would be just crazy. Like, put file in case PFIC, that would be meaningless. Phonetics, that definitely is a good way to go. And create command language guidelines, create explicit models of the objects and actions. So what you'll do is just like that table that we saw a couple slides back, identifying all the objects, identifying all the actions, and then identifying what the results would be. So meaningful, distinctive names, the hierarchy and structure, and list number of commands and the ways of accomplishing a task. So we could accomplish a task by, if we want to save a file, we could save a file on the computer. We could save as with a different name, but if we could even save as with the same name, we can there's different ways that we, for example, can copy something. We can go to the menu Edit and press Copy and then highlight that area and press Enter. We could right-click and copy. We could do a shortcut V, Control C and copy. So there are many ways to accomplish a task, and we don't want to have too many ways because then it gets confusing. Also, if you change the code and how to do that, you've got to change it 3 ways. Okay, natural language and computing. When you go to a Google search and you say, find me articles about human factors for computing, natural language, the Google knows to just look at those keywords, human factors. Find me articles about German shepherds, German shepherd heart problems, and comes a whole list of articles. Natural language really looks to be able to use just talking to be able to get the information you want. And natural language text generation. We're doing that now. I do that now when I do my phone and I do a text. I just talk into the phone. I don't do it any other way. And adventure games and instructional games, they are very big in just using icons and pictures, which have embedded code to do a certain task. So when we look at natural languages in education, we see things like we have just graphics, we have tables, things that are very apparent to us without having to do a lot of reading. It just happens. All right, so that's the end of that. I also wanted to talk about the class a bit so that people don't get confused. So one of the things that I wanted to do, if I can get out of here, there we go, is I wanted to look at at our class. If I go here, sorry. And I wanted to discuss the assignments. So, for example, we have this project that was due this past weekend, and there's three parts of this project. So, first of all, you had in a discussion, you were supposed to discuss your project to get feedback from your fellow students. Okay, that's what we were supposed to do. Then, based upon that, you were supposed to create a design document. That was Research Topics Part 1. And that particular part of the project was really identifying your design. The initial design document will provide a literature review of 5 to 6 articles about the topics that you're going to create. So you've identified a topic, and now you're doing a lit review. All right? I'm pretty clear, and I give examples of what those things can be. All right. So, after you've done that, you'll work on your project some more, because the next part of it is the design document of your project, which is really much more detailed. And I need to put more information on it. But in that particular part, you're going to spell out the specifics of what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, who you're going to survey, what the survey is going to look like. All of that will go into that particular piece. And then the third piece of this, the actual project, part 3, that's where you've created the project, you've run your surveys, you've identified data, you write it all up, you put together a presentation, you then film it and create a YouTube, you talk and create a YouTube, similar like I'm doing right now. We post it, and then I review it. Then we have something called a peer review, where after they've all been posted, your project will be assigned to 2 people to look at and give you feedback, as well as my feedback. So that's the whole circle of this project. So it's critical that at each step you meet the requirements that need to be created, or you will not be successful. This is a big part of the class. It's got 200 points for the project, and then another 20 for the peer review. And the project should be inclusive of usability studies, task analysis, all of these types of activities. So I will provide some documents that will help you in that process. But if you're not clear, you need to come see me. I don't want people to not understand the project. So that's it for now. I thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to these projects. Bye-bye.